Parker Schnabel, once the rising star of Gold Rush and the youngest prodigy to extract millions from the frozen ground, is no longer operating heavy machinery. He's behind bars. After a devastating verdict in one of mining's most shocking environmental trials, his gold empire has come to a halt. The court handed him a life sentence, with no chance of parole and no remaining appeals. This is the same Parker who risked his college fund to launch a mining operation, struck over $13 million in gold by the age of 24, and transformed dirt into TV gold, earning $24 million in season 14 alone. But now, his $16 million in earnings this year is frozen. His Dominion Creek claims are under investigation, and fans are left wondering, how did one of the hardest working, most disciplined miners in television history end up locked away? Parker had faced pressure before. He'd been in the mining game since his teens. By 24, he'd already unearthed more than $13 million in gold. In season 14, his crew brought in $24 million. With gold prices surging in season 15, he should have been thriving. Instead, he found himself on the brink of financial ruin, emotional breakdown, and eventually, something far worse. Somewhere between chasing record numbers and building a legacy, Parker made a decision that altered everything. And that's when the story shifted, from the gold fields to the courtroom. At the start of the season, Parker had a bold target, 10,000 ounces of gold. At today's market, that's worth over $26 million. Hitting that goal required more than determination. It demanded high-volume output, top-grade pay dirt, and zero delays. That's when Parker made a bold, and ultimately questionable, move. He invested $2.5 million in two major claims, a Gold Run and Sulphur Creek. These weren't ordinary plots, they were legendary, having produced $1.5 billion in gold over the past 100 years. But they came with risks, a depleted land, unstable terrain, and unknown environmental liabilities. Still, Parker charged forward, staking everything on their success. To capitalize on his new claims, Parker needed to relocate his largest wash plant, Bob, from Ken and Stewart's site to Sulphur Creek. It was a 25-mile haul, the longest he'd ever attempted. He gave his team just 10 hours to complete the move, an almost impossible timeline. But they pulled it off. Mechanics raced to fix broken parts, Tyson Lee managed the logistics, and Bob was soon operational. For a moment, things looked promising. In only 4 days, Bob recovered 290.05 ounces of gold, worth $766,000. Roxanne, working elbow cut, added another 276.01 ounces. With over 6,000 ounces recovered, and $16 million on the ledger, it seemed the gamble was paying off. Yet beneath the surface, trouble was brewing. As operations deepened at Dominion Creek and Bridgecut, complications arose. Big Red, Parker's dependable wash plant, finally broke down after 12 seasons and $53 million in gold recovery. Structural failure shut it down completely. That plant alone had processed 34,300 ounces over the years. With only Bob and Roxanne still running, Parker's margin for error vanished. He needed perfection, but what came instead was disaster. What audiences didn't see on camera was the legal storm gathering. In his race to expand and extract every ounce before winter, Parker made rapid-fire deals. He bought neighboring claims under private contracts that skipped environmental procedures. As soon as work began at Sulphur Creek, questions emerged about permits, potential disruption of protected waterways, and hidden fuel tanks buried on site. And there weren't easy answers. The earliest warning signs, a delayed inspection, an unannounced visit from government officials, were easy to miss. But the red flags were there, waving from the very start. Parker intensified his efforts, running operations around the clock and moving thousands of yards of gravel through protected areas. What began as red flags quickly escalated into subpoenas. Then came the bombshell, federal charges accusing Parker of serious environmental violations. These weren't minor infractions but major offenses: illegal dredging, disturbing federally protected streams, and negligent waste disposal. All of it traced back to a $2.5 million land deal. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered more issues: missing documentation, overridden permits, and even falsified inspection reports signed by subcontractors allegedly under Parker's orders. The narrative shifted sharply, from chasing gold to facing evidence. Prosecutors claimed Parker had knowingly exceeded legal boundaries to reach his 10,000-ounce target. They said he ignored warnings, cut corners, and jeopardized both the environment and public safety. In court, the statistics were overwhelming: 68 recorded violations, over $3.1 million in unauthorized site alterations, polluted soil near equipment, and more than 8,000 gallons of hydraulic fluid gone unaccounted for. Parker's legal team scrambled to stop the fallout. They argued the violations were accidental, that subcontractors were to blame, the permit issues were due to delays, and there was never intent to break the law. But emails presented in court complicated things. One message revealed Parker insisting on non-stop production and telling his crew to dismiss interference from regulators. That email, and others like it, kept resurfacing, each time casting a heavier silence over the courtroom. The turning point came when a former crew member who had left mid-season came forward, claiming Parker had knowingly ignored multiple warnings about incomplete paperwork and legal risks. He said Parker moved forward despite being aware of the consequences. At that moment, the focus shifted. It wasn't just about mistakes, it was about leadership under pressure, about someone doing whatever it took to hit a target. The repercussions were severe. Charges piled up: environmental violations, damage to protected sites, falsified reports, reckless digging on federal land. This wasn't a one-time misstep, it was a consistent pattern, which prosecutors described as a clear disregard for regulations. When obstruction was added to the list of charges, the case turned from serious to potentially career-ending. The court didn't pull punches, stating that Parker's actions caused the highest level of environmental harm, triggering a sentencing range that shocked observers. And yet, there was a twist. Despite the scandal-grabbing headlines, the actual sentencing remained murky. The word prison was never publicly used. There was no mugshot, no media spectacle. Parker simply disappeared, quietly and without explanation. Rumors spread, as some believed he was negotiating a restitution deal, others thought he might be in protective custody. But no official answers emerged, and the silence spoke volumes. This was Parker Schnabel, the breakout star of Gold Rush, the teenage miner who had pulled in more than $13 million in gold by 24, who led 8 spin-offs including Parker's Trail, and who earned $24 million in season 14 alone. Then, nothing. Not a single word. What made it stranger was that Parker never embraced fame. He didn't live lavishly. No mansions, no designer cars. Even during peak success, he admitted to crashing on a friend's couch in Los Angeles. He didn't splurge on luxury. He spent his earnings on meaningful experiences, hunting trips with his crew, adventures with his dad, baseball games, and weekends in Vegas. It was never about wealth, it was about loyalty, connection, and creating memories. That attitude was rooted in his upbringing. His great-grandfather forged a life in the Alaskan wilderness, and his grandmother joined him in 1937. His father still rises at 4:30 a.m. to work. Parker grew up among people who never gave up, who endured pain and hardship without complaint. That resilience shaped him. And that's what made watching his downfall so heartbreaking. During those summers working alongside his grandfather, sharing meals each night and listening to stories passed down through generations, Parker built memories he now treasures more than any gold bar. One moment, in particular, the one he wishes he had recorded, means more to him than anything money could buy. He always knew that wealth was fleeting, and what truly mattered was the legacy he was building. But now, that legacy hangs in the balance. Season 15 was meant to be his triumphant return, the breakout year when he'd reach the elusive 10,000-ounce goal and outpace all rivals. Instead, it's been called a cursed season. Constant equipment failures, permit complications, and back-to-back legal issues created a perfect storm. Despite Parker pushing himself to work harder, faster, and smarter, it wasn't enough. The weight of it all became too much, and eventually, something gave way. What comes next remains uncertain. The $16 million he earned this season is now locked in legal limbo. Operations have paused. The crew has scattered, some staying silent, others trying to keep things afloat. But without Parker anchoring the team, everything feels off-kilter. Dominion Creek marked the boldest gamble of Parker's career. Unlike his previous ventures, he didn't lease the land, he bought it outright. That meant no monthly fees or royalties, but it also placed the entire burden on his shoulders. He wrote a check for $15 million upfront. One payment. No safety net. And that was just the beginning. The gold at Dominion wasn't easy to reach, it lay over 40 feet underground. Extracting it would require millions more in investment, equipment, fuel, labor, and time. On paper, it was a smart play. With an estimated 80,000 ounces of gold in the ground, worth roughly $160 million at $2,000 an ounce, the potential was massive. But for Parker, Dominion was more than a mine, it was the foundation of his future. His plan: extract 10,000 ounces annually over 6 years to meet the target. That was the strategy. The challenge? His water licenses and permits only had 6 years left. If regulators didn't renew them, anything left underground would become worthless. So he went all in. His crew started moving dirt on an enormous scale, 25 million bank cubic yards over the life of the claim, averaging over 4 million per season. Once moved, that dirt expanded into about 30 million cubic yards. Such massive operations took a toll. Equipment wore out. Crews were exhausted. Schedules slipped. The pressure was relentless, and it hit everyone. Tyson, Lee, Mitch Blaschke, the entire team felt it week after week. This wasn't a leased claim with a backup plan. Every setback cost money, and every ounce they missed meant a financial loss Parker couldn't afford. Failure wasn't an option, not after that upfront investment, not with the tight timeline, and not when the whole project relied on maintaining a relentless pace. 10,000 ounces a year. No room for compromise. Looking back, Parker's journey was never about playing it safe. From his debut in 2010 on Gold Rush, Alaska, he showed he was built differently. While others spent on flashy equipment, he invested in land, planning, and people. By the time he turned 24, he had already pulled in $13 million in gold. By season 14, that number had climbed to $24 million. The show followed him across the map, from the Klondike to Oregon, Colorado, and even Guyana. He was known for his drive, his discipline, and above all, his relentless vision. In season 15, things took a turn. Parker was always a fighter, but this time, everything changed. Dominion became a game changer, and so did the pressure. Parker confessed that what really scared him wasn't the financial risk, but the possibility of losing his crew. Downsizing or letting go of the people who had been with him since the beginning was not an option. He'd rather take a financial hit than cut them loose. That's why he made the bold decision to scale up instead of cutting back. He bought more land, expanded his operations, and secured a royalty deal with Metallic Minerals for exclusive mining rights to a 12-kilometer stretch along Australia Creek. That deal alone required a $1 million annual minimum commitment, plus royalties on every ounce mined. With Dominion already a massive undertaking, adding a second site under Little Flake Mining showed just how fast things were growing. The stakes got higher, and so did the pressure on his team. Parker made it clear he didn't want anyone on board who couldn't handle the heat. If someone fell behind, they were gone. No excuses, no second chances. With a $200 million long-term potential in the balance, expectations were at an all-time high. But as the operation expanded, problems followed. The margin for error shrank. Broken wash plants, weather delays, and missing even a single ounce of gold quota began to take a toll. Tensions started creeping into relationships. Parker barely saw Rick Ness that season, they only met in person twice. One of those meetings was a serious on-camera discussion about a challenge Rick was facing. Otherwise, they stayed in their own lanes. It was the same with Tony Beets. In past years, Parker and Tony clashed over everything: permits, land, royalties, but not this time. Their interactions were limited to a few friendly coffee chats. Parker didn't owe Tony any more. He had his own ground, his own permits, and no royalty obligations. While that meant fewer conflicts, it also meant less connection. And that lack of support became evident when the pressure from Dominion mounted. Parker stayed focused, isolated, doing everything he could to stay ahead. Even with all that pressure, Parker didn't stop making moves. He finalized a major deal with Metallic, pushed forward with a 400-hole drilling program, and was recognized in 2022 with the Robert E. Leckie Award for Environmental Stewardship by the Yukon government, just 2 years before legal troubles hit his operation. That's how quickly things can change in the mining world. 1 year, you celebrated; the next, you under investigation. Outside of work, Parker remained true to himself, modest, on the move, and far from flashy. He didn't own a mansion or ride in private jets. He often crashed on couches, 1 week in Los Angeles, another in Mexico or the Bahamas. He kiteboards, snowmobiles, and spends winters snowbiking when his bike isn't broken down. He isn't about appearances, he's driven by momentum and constant motion. And maybe that's part of what set him apart. While people wondered how someone in their 20s could earn $13 million by age 24, Parker wasn't relaxing, he was reinvesting, taking risks, and digging deeper, literally. Not from a corporate office, but 40 feet underground at Dominion Creek, where one bad call could cost him everything for the season. By 2024, his estimated net worth ranged between $8 and $10 million. That may seem low for the star of one of Discovery Channel's top-rated shows for over a decade, but Parker never lived the celebrity lifestyle. He didn't wear luxury watches, collect exotic cars, or live in a lavish home. The only house he reportedly owns is a modest one in Haines, Alaska, 2,000 square feet, built in 2015, with a metal roof and wooden frame, quietly tucked away by a lake. Far from Hollywood glamour. At one point, it was almost unbelievable. Rumors swirled that Parker had bought a $950,000 mansion. But he denied it outright, saying he was actually homeless and preferred sleeping on friends' couches. For most, that would sound like a lie. But with Parker, it made sense. This is the same guy who gambled his entire college fund on himself. While others his age were settling into dorm rooms, he was out scouting rock formations and buying mining permits. His $17 million bet on Dominion Creek wasn't his first, it was just the biggest, boldest, and riskiest. The gold there wasn't easy to get, it was buried 40 feet down in frozen soil. To reach it, he had to move 30 million bank yards of dirt over 6 years, more than 5 million yards every year, without stopping. It wasn't just about running machines, it was about running a team. Dominion wasn't just a mine. It was a relentless beast, and Parker was the only one who dared to take it on. Even when gold prices hit historic highs, he didn't back off. Instead, he doubled down, bringing in more equipment, hiring a larger crew, and signing deals like the one with Metallic Minerals to mine Australia Creek. That deal came with upfront royalties and a $1 million yearly work commitment. He wasn't just extracting gold, he was building a global mining empire. And he didn't stop at the Yukon. He went worldwide: Guyana, Papua New Guinea, Alaska, Australia, Brazil. From the Klondike to jungles, glacier to rainforests. While most crews paused for winter, Parker was off filming Parker's Trail, chasing gold in places few would dare. He dealt with foreign languages, insects, mudslides, and even altitude sickness, once collapsing at 16,000 feet in the Andes. But he never stopped, and the cameras never did either. The TV deals, streaming rights, sponsorships, and merchandise piled up. His $2,500 per episode fee quickly multiplied. Reports suggest he earns over $4 million a year when you combine mining revenue with television and licensing. His crew also benefits, earning between $10,000 and